Today is our third Sunday listening to parables that Jesus gave to the people, and especially in the gospel that we're following, the Gospel of Matthew during this time, on what it means or what the Lord expects us to be doing, waiting for Him to come again. Because the community of Matthew was an up-and-coming community. They had good practicing people that began to follow Jesus and listen to the disciples and go forward, and you had those other ones who were probably like that third guy, a little lazy and lackadaisical and not doing anything. And as always, I was reading some stuff on the scriptures, and it's very interesting, is that the talents that they were given, according to how they translated words and everything in that time and how they came over, was a lot of money. So it wasn't like $2,000. The term that I saw one time was millions. So this landowner was rich. And he called his servants in, and as I read the commentary and I was thinking about it, this is one of the few times that the Lord didn't tell these three people what He wanted them to do with what they got. We could presume that the last week when we heard about the 10 virgins, the wise and the foolish, well, if you were going to be waiting for the groom to come in, you better have oil in your stuff because that's what you needed to do. It was kind of known. And today there's a presumption by the owner of the talents that we kind of knowing or that we know what to do with the gifts that are given to us, because that's the purpose of this story, is that each of us stop and reflect on the gifts that have been given to us and how do we use them, or how maybe don't we use them, because there's both sides of that coin. Just a little bit of history at the time, and this time in the world, the Roman Empire had control of everything, and so the trade routes and all that stuff were very safe. So it was very profitable to do trading, and banking was safe. So the person's not even that one talent, not even trying to put it into the bank to gain something. I always try to put myself in that position. Why would I do that if I knew my master always got a return? Okay? Why would I just bury it and not use it? And as much as I thought about that, the only thing I could come up with was, well, even though the system in my country could be good, or the banking was good at the time, there was this fear that I don't want to fail. So at least if I return what I got, I didn't fail, because I didn't lose anything. I didn't incur a loss for the person that gave me the talents. And as I delve more deeply into the scripture and what everything was saying, it's kind of like Deacon and I were talking before Mass a little bit, and he gave me an idea a little bit of it. He says, a lot of people think, well, if God is so loving and merciful that when we die, we'll all get into heaven anyway, no matter what, because we have a loving and merciful God. And these last 3 weeks, we get a different story. 5 of the virgins were left outside. The one that didn't risk or put their faith into practice to try to grow and develop that faith, to build on it, got left out and was thrown into prison, because another way of interpreting the 3 people were the communities that got a little bit more, began to listen to Jesus, that began to put into practice His message of healing the sick and forgiving one another and calling people that were on the outside into communion, whereas the Sadducees and Pharisees, according to one commentary that I read, they were probably the one with the one talent. They wanted to keep it just as it was and couldn't see anything new breaking into the world, because the Lord was incarnate. And by His incarnation, He has called us to, yes, have our faithful practices, to do the things that we need to do to enlighten our minds and to help us grow. But then, as we grow, we change. We develop. We think things maybe differently. And what the Lord invited His people to do was to center in on His mission. That how is it with the talents that we have that we take the risk to live our faith day in and day out? That we just don't live it here in the church. Yesterday I had the privilege of doing a baptism for a friend of mine, her third child. And for some reason, I know I've spoken about this before, and this has something to do with the talents. Isn't it just amazing when we walk into church, we're all brothers and sisters? We say hi to one another. We're nice to one another. We may get a book for one another. But at times, so I believe every church, every synagogue, every storefront chapel, every mosque has magic doors. When we come in, we're all great. And when we walk out, I think we have sometimes negative steps. Because as good as we were on the inside, once we walk out, did you see how she was dressed? How could she bring her kids to church like that and let them eat crackers during Mass? Oh no, did you see that? Oh, why do they sing 15 verses of every song during the Mass when we want to get out of here? We forget what we do here, and as we walk outside, in a sense, we don't take our faith from here that we express around the table and put it into practice on the outside. Put it into practice so it grows and develops. So as we're ending our year, because next week we'll celebrate Christ the King, and then after that we begin our new year with the Advent celebrations, we're called to reflect upon how are we waiting for the Lord to come into our lives, but more importantly, not only come into our lives, to realize that He is there, that He is giving us gifts and talents, and He invites us to use them to proclaim His message that there could be peace in the world when we proclaim and live our faith.